Hey guys, thought I'd share my latest project on the NSX. It's basically a budget stereo upgrade to the factory Bose system. Nothing super fancy, but it basically encompasses a small subwoofer replacement with 5 1/4 coaxial speakers for the doors. So as you guys know, this one sits in the footwell. Each one of these sits in the doors. My motive for this whole thing is basically when I was in high school and college, I was a self-proclaimed huge audiophile, and over the years I kind of just grew out of it. But I did, make a decent amount of money to pay for college and all that stuff, working as a 12-volt audio and navigation video installer. So I do have some background. I used to go to IASCA, and I used to go to CES every year for work, actually. So do have some decent understanding of audio systems. Although I was actually pretty shocked because, going back into that world over the last maybe 6 months to a year, just, doing some light research and all this stuff and trying to put my mind together on what exactly I wanted to do, I was surprised how much the industry hasn't really progressed that far. So whatever, no big deal. But I'll go ahead and show you guys what is it that I'm doing here, and hopefully if it can help you, then great. If you have any questions, then obviously just submit in the comments and I'll try to do my best to answer them. A lot of you guys just contact me on Facebook anyway, so either way, I'm happy to help. Let's go through some of the stuff that I'm doing here. Where do we start? So let's go with some of the tools that I've been using to basically retrofit some of these speakers. Definitely need a jigsaw. Have my Dremel tool over here. Have a couple of screw guns and my multi-purpose drill bit kit. These come in really handy. These are countersink bits, which basically countersinks the high density fiberboard, so you get a nice flat screw end or kind of a countersunk mounting point for those screws. So when you mount them, it's nice and flat against the base of the basket, the speaker basket. So what else do I have here? Just some random other unibits, marking materials, tape measure, blah blah blah. It's nothing super fancy. Although I wish I had my router, and I wish I had my air saw. So I don't have a compressor in this house, so cutting out the factory plastic grill that was here would have been much better with a reciprocating air saw, which I had in the past, but I decided not to have an air compressor here because those things are really noisy. So I had to make do with a ghetto Dremel. Dremel's always kind of my last resort, but as you guys know, it does the job for pretty much everything. So anyway, let's go through the different parts that I used. So here's my Parts Express kind of list. As you can see, I ended up buying a bunch of things that I did not need. This was the second order for the subwoofers. I ended up buying 4 because I wasn't sure which exactly would fit, and the Parts Express guys are pretty cool. They let you return it as long as you pay for shipping. So I have a box ready to go with all this stuff to go back to them. But what I did keep was this speaker 2641065. That's this subwoofer. The only problem I have with this subwoofer is it is an 8 ohm subwoofer. I would have liked to ideally have had a 4 ohm or a 2 ohm, because the 4-channel amplifier that I'm using here is basically 2 ohm stable. So it would have been nice to take advantage of that, but if you're gonna drive an 8 ohm speaker from a 2 ohm stable amp, that just means the amp doesn't really have to work that hard, which in the long run is good, but I'm not really maximizing the power of that amp. So we'll see if it's loud enough. It is supposed to be bridged at 100, basically 210 watts into a 2-channel bridge mode at 2 ohms. So who knows what that is at 8 ohms, but hopefully that's enough power to power this little guy. it's not, you know, this could probably power a 10-inch woofer, but I decided not to do that. So back to the parts list. Here are the other ones that I ended up buying. This PRV Audio AD400, part number 2678000, which is this guy, was about 150 bucks, I think. This speaker was about like 20 or 25 bucks. These Kicker 5¼ inch coaxial speakers, which is, where was that? 267-6864. These were open box, so I got them cheap. They were like, I don't know, 50% off or something. I think I want to say 50 or 60 bucks from Parts Express. So how do I plan to run all this? Basically, I want to use this pretty lightweight amplifier. It's a PRV Audio. Oh, thanks to Dan M. Henderson on Facebook. He's turbo to go on NSX Prime. We all know him. All the NSX guys knows him. And he pointed me to some of this stuff. Actually, I used to buy a lot of things from Parts Express, but they aren't exactly known as super like a high-end vendor. So they have a lot of like replacement parts that are inexpensive. But they also starting to carry more of the known brands like Pioneer, like these Kicker speakers I got from them. Basically everything here I got from them. So, but I haven't really used them in the past because, you know, you're young, you want the best stuff. And I did have the best stuff, Macintosh, and everything was powered by Alpine's latest and greatest, Clarion and all that. But for this build, I wanted to keep it a budget build. I wanted to keep it as simple as possible. I didn't want to use to the best, you know, as best as I can. I don't want to use like any EQs or any digital signal processors or any kind of time adjustment or any of that like crazy stuff, because you can easily go down the rabbit hole with audio processing, and I just don't have the patience right now to do it. So I'm hoping that with this amp, it basically has a high pass and low pass filter for the front channels, and it also has a high pass and low pass filter for the rear channels. I hope it's going to be enough. And powered through my phone with the volume controls and all the audio coming out of my phone, which admittedly Bluetooth isn't all that super high fidelity anyway. I'm hoping it will be adequate and it'll sound decent with enough volume. So what I plan to do is channel 1 and 2. Channel 1 and 2 will power the right and left front speakers in hopefully full range mode. If it gets pretty, if it starts to distort, then I'll definitely put it on high pass. I believe high pass was something like 120 Hertz as a cutoff point. I don't remember, I have to read up on that. It says it on the diagram, but I do believe that the low pass filter, which for this subwoofer, I want to run it and obviously with the low pass filter on and the 2 rear channels 3 and 4 bridged into 1. That low pass filter is, I believe, the cutoff point's at 80 Hertz. So 80 Hertz should be pretty decent for something like this. I thought this was capable of going down to like 25 Hertz, which is like super low, and probably, you know, getting to a point where it's not even audible, it goes so low. But let's see how that goes. So that's basically the amp. Oh, something interesting about the Bose speakers. So this is, let's see, 1364, 1366, 1365. This is really interesting. So obviously 2 of these are for the doors, and this 66 was from the subwoofer. But interestingly enough, they all share the same part number. 109638, 109638, 109638. Now these are the front 2, so they do kind of look different. Perhaps, you know, and then it has these like random kind of stickers on it, which these 2 share the same part numbers, 498, 498. But if these are part numbers, I'm not sure. I think these are dates. This is probably June 07, or if this, since this was in Japan, it was probably the 6th day of July 1990. So this was the 6th well, the 28th. So maybe it is June 28th, 1990. I don't know if that's even the date, but I just thought it was interesting that they have the same part numbers. So that just means that all the audio processing and the signal processing for this subwoofer, which actually is starting to feel not so great. You want a nice like free suspension like this one. Suspension is very, very like loose and there isn't anything binding. But my subwoofer, I guess it's okay. But there isn't really much suspension on the woofer here. And sorry guys, I'm just curious. This stuff is really interesting. This is kind of feels a little bit looser than these two. So maybe they are different. Anyway, whatever it is, I thought it was interesting that they did not use a subwoofer speaker that was all that different. So what could help you guys here? I should probably take this apart and show you guys how I did it so that you can mimic it or copy it yourselves. I won't be able to test these out anytime soon as I need to spend some time to wire that amp and wire these speakers, and I gotta run, you know, decent wire through the door, and all that stuff probably takes a little bit more time. But as far as time is concerned, this wasn't really that difficult. This took me about an hour and a half, and you can see I had to build, kind of make a template that is this way for that high density fiber board. This kind of adapter plate, as I call it, which adapts the 3-hole factory speaker mounting points to the 6-hole Parts Express speaker. This isn't a Parts Express branded speaker. They have a separate brand for it, but they're the ones who sell the speaker. So that, you know, doing this and doing cutouts and doing the wiring, etc., took about an hour and a half. These ones on the doors took a little bit longer because I didn't really have a game plan going in. At first, with a different set of speakers that I tried, it required that I cut out the outer plastic mesh that was on here, and you can see where the Dremel ran from me, and it kind of ate up that piece. And if I would have spent a little bit more time, could have made this really nice and really smooth, but whatever. It will totally do the job, and it'll totally do the job just fine. But I wish I had my air saw, my reciprocating air saw, because this would have been much cleaner. So I was able to fit this speaker. So if you do end up getting this same speaker, it's a full range, you know, specifically designed for car audio. This one I think is designed for home audio, but this is specifically designed for car audio. And this speaker, you know, in its natural state, it's designed to run kind of in an infinite baffle setup, which means that it's designed to fit on a door. Suspension is rather firm, but it's designed to use the door itself as the baffle. So I am not 100% sure how it's going to sound behind these enclosures, but in my experience in the past, these enclosures are usually pretty decent, and if you put a decent speaker within an enclosure like this, it tends to sound decent. I may need some sound processing if I was really, you know, trying to make things sound perfect, but we'll have to see. It might be enough. So sorry, I'm kind of bouncing around here, but I'll give you guys an idea. Oh, so yeah, so this took me to do both maybe like 3 hours. And if I had a better game plan going in and I knew exactly what speakers to use, etc., probably would have taken me 2 hours. But I'd say maybe 3.5 hours is a good ballpark on how long it took me to do these. Also, by the way, for you kind of preservationist OEM guys, I ended up buying all this stuff from eBay. So, NSX Prime, a long time ago. I've been hanging on to these, and these aren't a pristine condition set at all. I mean, I've got like tabs missing on this one. You know, it's got a few other cracks that I probably had to at some point seal up or glue, but they'll definitely do the job, and I didn't want to mess up my original ones, which are still in the car. And also, Now that I'm thinking about it, from a weight standpoint, I didn't want to put a lot of weight into the car. So I didn't want, you know, one of those big 10-inch subwoofers that eats up a little bit or sometimes a lot, depending on who makes it, eats up a lot of footwell space. So even though the NSX, that footwell on the passenger side is really deep, I didn't want to eat up any of that space. I just didn't think it was worth it to have a 10-inch subwoofer in a car that, you know, I don't really think being a audiophile competitor, I didn't really need that level of equipment in the NSX. In my other car, sure, but not that one. So let's see here. Oh, weight. Net, I actually think I was doing some calculations. Net, I actually think I'm saving some weight on this one. Probably save a couple pounds overall, you know, given that these speakers over here are, sorry, these amplifiers, the Bose amplifiers, these speakers are much heavier than this or this. And even with the additional Class D amplifier here, all in all, I ended up saving some weight. So let me show you guys kind of the idea to what I'm doing here. So, kept the polyfill, and as you can see, this is the high density fiber board that I'm using as a adapter plate. So these are the 3 factory Bose location screws. I didn't have a matching screw, so oh well. And this adapter adapts the 3-hole to the 6-hole of the Parts Express speaker. So that's that. Let me just put this here. Might be more interesting to show you this one. So this door speaker, take this off. So much faster with that, isn't it? Okay. Oh, this one. So, kept all the polyfill. There's still polyfill underneath this guy, which I don't want to tip over because all the screws will pop out. But this, as you can see, is, I kind of screwed that up, oops. But this is the kicker 5¼ inch coax at 4 ohms. So I upgraded the wire. This is a 16 gauge that goes to the speaker. And I even was able to use the factory screws, but this guy is on there. I mean, that is really stout. But ended up using 2 layers of this high density fiberboard. The first layer basically mounts the speaker to the fiberboard, and the second layer, as you can see, I have it countersunk here, connects. You can see there's 2 layers there. I think you can see that. There's 2 layers of the fiberboard that adapts basically the OEM center space to the 3-hole mounting base to this 4-hole mounting for the speaker. If you don't space that out, then it basically, the basket of the speaker like starts to hit the factory enclosure. So oops. This is important. Got to keep that. That seal is handy. But this basket starts to have clearance issues all the way around, and so, you know, I had to make these. I don't have the. I can't show you guys a template for this. I probably threw it away, but I had to, you know, kind of be careful and clearance out this second piece so that it would bolt on to the one behind it. Let's see. You could probably put a 6½ inch speaker in here, but 5¼ was what I thought was most optimal for this application. 6½ inch gives you more bass. It's actually decently significant. how much more volume and how much lower the 6.5 inch can go than like a 5 1/4, but it's better than the 4 inch, which I think this is a 4 inch that came with the original Bose system. And with the enclosure, it should help some of the low frequencies come out a little bit more. So I'm looking forward to testing that out. And also, you can see that, you know, the depth of, even with this spacer, the depth of the kicker versus the depth of the OEM Bose, even though the magnet is way beefier on this one, but the depth is pretty much the same. So you know, even though this gets sucked in a little bit more because it's got the spacer there, I have no clearance issues when putting all this back together. So that's kind of it. I'm trying to think if there's anything else I forgot or anything else that might be interesting for you guys. But more or less, I think that is the Bose speaker retrofit for my NSX. I'll be sure to post kind of the part numbers on and anything else I can think of in the description, so you guys can go get it if you want. I don't know how any of this is gonna sound yet. Experience tells me it'll probably sound pretty decent, but I won't know until I install everything. So hopefully that helps. All right, thanks.